Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Becca and today we are getting started on some holiday gifts that I'm gifting and that I am making. So the first gift that we're going to make is a Phoenix Suns DIY merch piece because I have a friend who really loves professional basketball and it's just like, I don't know, it's all she ever posts about on Instagram basically. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna go off of that. And I was scrolling around on Pinterest and I saw that people were sewing quilt blocks onto sweatshirts. So I found a purple sweatshirt and I'm going to quilt block something that is gold and white. The Phoenix Suns colors are gold, white, and purple. The quilt block that I'm going to be making is the Star in a Star, and I don't know if this has like a special name, but this is what it looks like, and I found a tutorial that I will link down below from scrapquilts.com. The first step of a project involving quilting is always planning. I draw out the block and translate onto my block from the pattern exactly how much of each color that I need to cut and the sizes. I was going to try and explain how to do a flying geese, but I figured I'd leave that to the professionals, so I'm also going to link a tutorial for that down below. I just feel like I would make it really confusing and the professionals are just so much better at explaining. But basically this pattern is 4 flying geese in the small size, 4 flying geese in the large size, and a couple of white squares to make up the negative space. When you're quilting, you want to make sure that you're taking the time to trim up your pieces after you sew them to make all of the lines straight again and trim it down, as well as using a consistent seam allowance throughout the entire project. I always do a 1/4 inch seam allowance just because that's the easiest for me to follow on my machine. So whatever seam allowance you choose, just make it consistent. Once my block was actually finished, and oh my gosh, it is so pretty, I ironed it all flat and then I ironed a small folded hem around the entire block so that it had a nice clean edge. I also cut the bottom hem off of the sweatshirt because it's something I've seen this particular friend do with a few of her other crew necks, so I figured that she would like that. And for actually sewing on the block, make sure that when you're placing the block onto the sweatshirt, you lay it out flat and put the block on as straight as you possibly can. I used pins all around the border of the block as well as around the center, so you don't want your block to be shifting around while you're sewing, and the pins will just help keep it in place. I thought that it would be a lot more finicky to sew it on, but it actually behaved quite well. And once I finished sewing the block around the border, I stitched in the ditch along the straight lines, so not on the diagonals, just the straight parts. I just chose to machine quilt this because it would be a bit faster, but also it makes it a little bit more durable for a sweatshirt that's probably going to go in the wash all the time. Hopefully she wears it a lot. And here is the final result. I love it so much more than I was expecting. I was honestly like super tempted to ditch all of my other projects that I was gonna make for my other friends and just make a bunch of these, like a block for their personality. And I definitely have plans to make one or a few for myself this winter. Time for our next DIY, which is going to be a crochet blocking board. So if you make granny squares or you crochet things, you will know that blocking boards are very helpful to just make the shape correct for your crochet piece. And this friend in particular has recently taken up crochet and she's currently making a granny square blanket. So this idea popped into my head and I started researching. I went out to the store and I got a cutting board. This was, I think, like $8 or $12 from Marshall's, and I wanted to get a little bit of a bigger one so that if she wanted to block more than, you know, one set, she could. And then in the video that I watched, the woman bought these metal rods, and I will also link these below. I'm also going to be using my drill, a set of bits, this kind, so that I can make holes the right size for these rods. She also used an awl to make the holes a little bit bigger, but I feel like you don't need this actually. A ruler and a pencil. Okay, spoiler alert, I did end up cutting this board in half because it just ended up being really big and I didn't feel like it was necessary. But the first step was marking the absolute center point. So I found the center from the horizontal and the vertical point, and I drew with a pencil on that. And then I just started marking every inch, and then it was pretty easy using this ruler to mark with the pencil all of the different things. You can see that this grid was really small. These were, I think, half an inch apart, and it would have been a lot of holes to drill. And looking at it, I just decided that I did not want to do that, and it just really wasn't necessary, especially after I saw the other side where I was drilling every inch. For the rods that I got, and we'll have linked down below, I used a 1/8 drill bit, and then as you just saw, I marked the depth at how far I wanted the drill bit to go down, and I just marked it with tape. And then once the tape started to like brush away the sawdust, that's when I knew that I had gone down far enough. Once all of the holes were finally drilled, I used some sandpaper that I should not have used. Definitely use a fine grit, like 220. This one was way too gritty and it caused some scratches that were unnecessary. So I ended up finding some 220 grit sandpaper, and that was enough to take off the scratches and then also remove the pencil marks. I polished it up with some coconut oil, and then here's where I started realizing that I had made a big enough grid and I didn't really need to have the other side of the board. It would have been a lot easier to transport too. So I set up some of these rods to see if it would be enough. So this is enough for 2 sets of granny squares, and I felt like that was plenty. And I'm not proud of how I cut this, so I did not show it. It was a little bit unsafe. I just used my circular saw, and I'm using the awl here to poke the holes through because the coconut oil sometimes went into the holes. And yeah, after I cleaned it up, it was so beautiful. I'm really proud of this, and I'm probably going to use the other half to make one for myself. I'm so excited to see this board get used with my friend and her new crochet hobby. Seriously, when your friends take on hobbies that you also have, it is so much fun. Welcome to my unaesthetic life. I am working on the next project, which is a checkerboard for my friend who does a lot of traveling. So I wanted to make her and her boyfriend like a little traveling game set. So yeah, we're gonna make some checkers, and this is going to be a quilted checkerboard that can like roll up really easily and be stored because they do backpacking. So I want them to be able to like not take up a lot of space with this. I'm working with contrasting fabric. So I have this fern fabric, which if you watched my nursery video, this will look familiar. This is an offcut from that, and I think that this will be enough. It's like probably 1/4 yard. And then I have this just leftover white background fabric. Quilting checkers is really easy. There's actually some tutorials that I've seen recently where people sew the fabric into strips, like they make stripes and then they cut it long ways into like the square size that they want. So I don't know exactly how big I want these to be, like maybe finish size 1.5 inches. So that would be to this point. So 1.5 inches, which means that I need to actually make them, if I'm doing a 1/4 seam allowance, that means I need to make 2-inch squares. I think that's the correct math. Happy to report that is the correct math. So if you are going to be recreating this, you're going to need to cut a bunch of 2-inch strips. I would say don't make too many because you don't actually need that many. You're gonna need 64 squares for this because we're making an 8x8 grid. So I cut out my green fabric and then my contrasting fabric, and I kind of just was hoping that I would have enough based off of a couple of cuts. Honestly, this is a great scrap buster because I barely used like any fabric. It was great. So I started off by sewing together all of those strips, and I sewed 2x2s. I don't know why I did that. And anyway, I ended up sewing it all together, as you can see here. And then I ended up cutting 2-inch strips from this, and I had just enough. Like, it was actually the perfect amount. I do not remember how many strips I cut or how long everything was, so I do apologize that I cannot offer you that. So you're just going to sew it together and make sure that you are lining up your corners. The corner thing is a little bit difficult if you are really new to quilting, but I will say that if you are super accurate in your cutting, the sewing part is a lot easier, and you can sort of manipulate the fabric to get those corners perfect. And something that I read online is that if you leave the pins in and you sew over them really slowly, don't just blow through your pins, you can help keep the corners all intact where you want them to be. So after I finished sewing it all up, I ironed it down. Really important part of all of this is to make it very flat. And then I cut out the backing fabric. I did think about doing the backing fabric as like a tic-tac-toe board, but I don't know how often they would have used that. So I decided not to do that. Anytime you're quilting, it's also really important that you neaten up your edges. I showed that earlier in the star quilt, but I didn't exactly show how I was doing it. So I just put my ruler up to the very edge and then kind of trim off. You're not really trimming off too much. And at this point, I realized that I really wanted a border around it. So unfortunately, I didn't film that part, but it's really easy just to cut some strips and sew around it. And we're basically making a tiny quilt. So I have my quilt front, I have my batting, and then I have my backing, and you just make a little quilt sandwich. And I pinned all around, and then I sewed around the edge, and then I sewed in the ditch so I wouldn't have like any visible stitching. And yeah, it was really easy, really simple. I did this in an evening with a baby, and honestly, that is a testament in and of itself how easy this project is. She did end up going to sleep partway through me doing this, but I was able to hold her on my lap while I was doing a lot of it because you're just sewing straight lines, so it's pretty easy. Once again, I cleaned up the edges, and then when it came to the binding, I wasn't exactly sure what to do because I didn't want to do a traditional binding. So this might be a little bit hard to explain, but what I did was I trimmed the excess batting from between the backing and the front border seam. I just folded the border seam under, and then I folded the backing seam under, and then once that quilt batting is cut away, it was really easy to just sew those two together like a sandwich. But if you wanted to use the classic quilt binding, you can totally do that. I just didn't want to. And that is the final result of our DIY quilted portable checkers board. I love this so much. I love a DIY that is functional and can be used anywhere you go. And that is definitely this. So I really hope my friends love it. And I hope that if you remake it, you send me a photo. We are working on the last craft gift. And I'm in a different location now. I'm at my parents' house now. But I just need a sewing machine for this, and I grabbed a few other materials. So I am making a custom letter sweatshirt for my friend because I've been seeing these and I wanted to figure out how to do it, and I think that she would really like it. So this is part me using this as an excuse to figure out how to do this, and part gift from my friend. So I have made a little template. This is going to be dog mom. So whenever I do this, I just type out each individual letter I need. I don't do multiples. So DOGMOM. For the fabric for the letters, I have this pink houndstooth, and I do not need that much. Like, I think honestly you could get away with like a quarter of a yard and you'd probably still have more left over, just depending on how big your letters are. And then I have some mid-weight interfacing. I probably could have done heavy interfacing, but I needed mid-weight for a different project, and I didn't want to buy two different types of interfacing, especially if I'm not at my house. And then I got this sweatshirt, which is really soft and nice, and it was from Target, and it's pink. So we've got like a pink on pink moment. So I started off by cutting out my template, and I just found a pretty boxy font and tried it really big, and the first try was great. I loved the size of all of the letters. I would kind of suggest printing this out on cardstock if you can. I just laid them out onto the sweatshirt and measured out how exactly I wanted it to go. I really wasn't sure if I wanted all of the letters to be right next to each other or if I wanted them to be stacked. I'm going to show a few options for how that might look in a second. But I started off by cutting out some little sections of fabric for the letters, and you can see here how little amount of fabric these letters use. Like, this is an excellent scrap buster. I'm starting off by ironing the fabric to my stabilizer, which I really should have used a more intense stabilizer because this really didn't do much. And I've also been thinking that it might be better to put the letters on a stabilizer that is like a soak away stabilizer. I was looking for it in the store and I couldn't find it. So if I had more time, I probably would have ordered that. But here's the two variations of the letters, and I ended up going with the second option. And so what I did was I switched the machine to a zigzag stitch, and then I just very slowly went around. Since it is a zigzag stitch and this is flannel material, it is going to fray around the edges. Now, if you didn't want that, I would suggest using like an applique stitch. So it definitely has a little bit of a fuzzy look to it. I will say that the M's were a bit complicated and I had to undo one of them and fix it, and it was still kind of crooked. So I do plan on revisiting this DIY with the water soluble stabilizer. I just think that it'll be so much easier to have all of the letters on the sweatshirt at the same time, and it's not going to slide around as much. It was a little bit difficult to not have the letters be maneuvering around with this technique, but I was kind of flying bare bones here because I didn't have all of my regular craft stuff. But anyway, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and like I said, I do plan on returning to this DIY, making something for myself, maybe with some of Nora's old baby clothes and writing mama. But for now, we've got a dog mom sweatshirt, and if you can ignore the crooked M, which I did unpick and redo, but it's still crooked, I think it is super cute, and I'm positive my friend is just going to love it. So my friends, that is our video for the year for my DIY Christmas gifts. I hope that you enjoyed watching this and that you got some inspiration for some things that you can make for your friends. I love making things and crafting, and gifts are just a wonderful way to do that, especially because I can make all of these things and I don't have to keep them. So it's not going to take up space in my own home. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you liked any of these enough to make one, definitely send me a photo to my Instagram, Dela Creations. I would love to see it.